Pure Srimadananda Tirtha Bhagavat Padacharyo Namo Namaha Narayana Paripurna Gunarnavaya Visvodaya Stititolaya Niyadi Prataya Jnana Prataya Vibuddha Sura Saukya Dukkha Satkaranaya Vidadaya Namo Namaste Yo Vipralimba Viparita Madiprabodhan Vadan Nirasya Katavan Bhuvidatvavadam Sarvesvaro Haririti Pratipatakam Tam Ananda Tirtha Munivarayam Namami Pujjaya Raghavendraya Satya Dharmarataya Chan Pajatam Kalpavrakshaya Namatam Kamadhenavim Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahaihi Tejasvina Vadidamastu Ma Vishvidavahaihi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome friends once again to the episode of Kathopanishad. We will just try to continue from last week. We had a discussion at the end. The madam has asked one question, surrender as to whom we have to surrender. I also quoted an instance where, how surrendering to yourself, that is the final surrender. Surrender is yourself in the sense, finally the power inside you. The power inside you when you are surrendering in the sense it is, you will be coming out of the cacophony of the entire world. You are getting into the silent zone of your innards, where the silence is eloquent, because that is the word, because perhaps we can use it in English, because the silence is law of the Lord is love, and the language of the Lord is silence. In the sense, silence is the highest form of communication. This is what, in fact, because our scriptures say, it may sound little bit, because different, weird, because we always, we are very verbose, being Indians. And apart from that, depending upon the place where we are coming, because some places, they try to talk very briefly and all, because if you go to the UK and all, they are all tight-lipped, because the English tight-lip is very famous for that. But whereas, because we communicate a lot and all. But as per our scriptures, what is said is the natural language of the human being is silence. We interpret the silence when we speak and all, because we are not allowing our natural flow, when we are talking and all, because very often when we are talking, because what happens, it is coming out of the mind. The mind, if it is in control, because then, you will be able to talk, because cogently, and perhaps, you will be trying to convey more precisely than what you can. See, one of the reasons, why we are getting, so many distorted news, and nowadays, because even the fake news has come, because a lot of things are there. Even the right news, when it is communicated by different hands, the first, once you hear the same news again, it gets stale. Once again, you get the same news, it gets pejorated. Subsequently, it gets distorted, because what you are hearing, because what is what active voice, whatever is positive you would have heard, subsequently it will be distorted into something negative, because we are not so precise in our communication. In fact, one of the Supreme Court judgments, we had a very, very famous judge called V.R. Krishnaiyer, and he was known for his long and excellent, the jurisprudence, as well as his judgments are something, to be read as a novel, because it's so precisely. He has said, in one of his judgment, the English language is not a mathematical precision. So what you can convey, because it will be not even half you are able to convey. Whereas in Indian languages, you will be able to communicate 60% or 70%, because there are certain more precise words are there. In Tamil in particular, because for some other things, there are about 10 different options. Those who know the language, so intensely, because they have gone into the depth of it. There are say like Sanskrit also for the same dharma. If you want to see what is dharma because there is a Amara Kosha, because which is called the encyclopedia or dictionary of Sanskrit, because like Samuel Johnson has made it for English. The Amara Kosha is the one which is normally referred to in Sanskrit. If you want to see dharma, I think it gives several pages, and if you see the Encyclopedia Britannica, I understand dharma is being taken to 72 pages. So many interpretations are there. So dharma is, it is a guna, it is a quality, and it is the moral code of conduct. So many things. You can go on it epistemologically, expand it to any length. It is like that. So then, what happens? In view of this, why silence is so good in the sense, because, I have narrated this instance earlier also, not only because with our Ramana Maharishi, when a lot of the important people, they heard about him, they wanted to know what it is, that is so great about Ramana Maharishi. They've come and met him out of curiosity, because, he has been someone, who has made sort of entire difference, not by talking or anything like that. Whoever has gone and met him first time, they used to come prepared with a lot of questions. They wanted to see, let me ask this gentleman, because what is that so great about it is talking about. Let me just put him the question, get answers. But every time when they come and meet him, because when he's mostly, he used to be in meditation. Meditation in the sense, it's not eyes closed and all, because his eyes may be half open, and he was totally into meditation, submerged, because very often, people have to wait for half an hour or more than an hour like that. But when they come and, because when we sit in his front, in front of him, all of them have recorded. It's not that unrecorded. Like from Somerset Maugham in his famous novel called Razor's Edge. We will also be seeing that Razor's Edge in one of the mantras immediately following this, because it will be like a razor's edge. There he says, it is so sharp, because, the one gaze, when he was in a samadhi, when he gives the gaze, it communicates everything. He says, I didn't have to ask him anything. I came prepared, because some of the people have prepared for months to ask him, because they are telling, this and all, how is it possible, this and that, they are prepared, because like famous philosopher, from one philosopher from US had come, one Swiss philosopher had come, even someone who is closely associated, Carl Jung had come, so many people had come. But when they came and met Ramana Maharishi, just, because he was in the Samadhi silent, it takes some time to answer and all those things. So finally, when after seeing his gaze, because after seeing him, in silent mode, and you also become silent. And you also, whatever questions you wanted to ask, all of them get submerged, goes out into sort of a ether. It's not available there at all. But you have already got all the answers for your question. That's what they are telling. How is it possible? You got all the clarification. Because the silence is the zone. When we say, the meditation or adhyatma, or when we say nitidhyasana, shravana, manana, and all, because we are not knowing our own depth. To know our own depth is, what is called the silent zone and all. It's not that, you will not be talking. You will have to necessarily talk. Because there is one famous, one of the mantras are there in the Upanishad that we'll quote, not in this Upanishad. In another Upanishad it is there, and it is also a Shruti Vakya that will also say how silent is very important and all. Because the words will not be able to, as V.R. Krishnaiyer has said, the English language is not a language of mathematical precision. It can say yes, a may not be say, it is possible or it is not possible, everything. That is why one of the things, in interpretation, because our lot of laws, you will find lot of cases are pending in Indian courts, because we are following the jurisprudence, Westminster jurisprudence, English, that law, which we are following in most of the cases and all. And we have also drafted our law like that and all. So it is basically interpretative jurisprudence. So every law can be interpreted, because the same law has been interpreted by a high court, a particular way, and the Supreme Court turns it down, because that its law is susceptible to be interpreted in a different way. So this is what exactly it happens, because therefore, how you have to, is there any finality of the law? The finality of the law is as a person within his capability, what he interprets. That is the interpretational jurisprudence is the one, which takes, everything, to chances. You don't know, this is it. You will not be able to crystal clear point out this is the law. So in our case, it is too much, but it's also so, in other countries also, because, at one point of time, what a law is being upheld, what a constitution is being upheld, but the chances are, very far and few between in other countries, because they have taken care, to bring a lot of all the conditionalities into account. In our case, the conditionalities, whatever we could do, because ours was a young nation compared to all others. We got our independence in 47, though we are 75 years old and all, still our, the jurisprudence is evolving. That's how, it is a lot of new laws have to be amended. The new interpretation has to be brought. So many things are taking place and all. Coming to the simple point, because when we are when we are having, that silence is more eloquent and all. There someone was asking, because same question, they asked Ramana Maharishi, how am I to surrender? Surrender in the sense, because when you get into the zone of silence, that is a surrender, is simply. How would you, because that means, he says surrender in the sense, the more you think about, more you look for the answers, the more you have the questions, there will not be any question of surrender. Because even the surrender will be questioned, because the surrender will be defined by so many people in a different way. Someone will say bhakti is the surrender. Someone will say knowledge is the, so once you know the knowledge, because there is nothing more, you will be getting the finality, that is the surrender. Jnana, bhakti, because both, will have to be there for surrender. But both only will give you and all. So in the sense, because you will not be having any more doubts, any more questions. That is the surrender. How that surrender can take place? Because as long as, why do you want to surrender? Because you've got a lot of, you are finding a lot of things, which is not as per your expectations, nor as you thought, will happen. It is all happening different way. And somewhere, you coming into a dead end, you don't know how to proceed further. So that's why you are trying to find a sort of, because a solution for that. When you don't get the solution, the scriptures and all say, finally you leave it to everything to him and all. Leaving it everything to him in the sense, once you don't bother about, what is going to be the outcome, and you are simply doing it with all the attention, then, because it happened. All the attention as well as the skill, the effort, everything is required. Without effort, skill and attention, you will not be able to get the best of it. But you will have to have everything and all. Then you leave it to him. Then you get the realization that you are not the doer. You are only the agency through which it is being done. So how it is going to be done, it is his problem. So I am not going to be bothered about it. So for this one, a small quotation, because normally we say when you start the puja, we have, because all irrespective of, we say, because we invoke Ganesha. When we say, in the Ganesha Suttam, there is one mantra is there that all of us, we do in Nishushita Ganapate Ganeshutvam Ahu. Vipratamam Kavinam Narite Tvatkriyate Kinchanare Maham Margam Chitramarcha. In the sense, Ganesha, who is Ganesha? He is a Ganapati. He is the Adhipati of all Ganas. So when he is Ganas in the sense, all your senses, all these thoughts, everything comes and all. Finally, he is the one, Gana, the Adhipati of the Gana is Pranava. When he comes Pranava, when he becomes a Pranava, he represents the highest Brahman. So when he represents the highest Brahman, because whatever you are getting it done is, you will be able to do based on your capacity. For instance, you cannot generate 10 megawatt of power after a 5 megawatt of a 5 megawatt generator can't generate 10 megawatt of power. Because it is the capacity what you have. Each one of us have got a different capacity. So therefore, when it is being done, he knows what is your capacity, how to get it done. He will not be giving a 10 megawatt of a machine to be installed, when you are only a 5 megawatt. So he gets it done. So when you are ambitious beyond your capacity, you will find, the world is not, kind to you and all. Because, you are not equipped to that. You will have to equip yourself. So therefore, when you leave it to the Almighty and all, based on the capacity, because I can't be having the same capacity, none of us can have the same capacity as Ramakrishna Paramahamsa or Vivekananda, Ramana Maharishi and all. They have all gone to, because they have to face certain things, they have to give some advice, or they have to create an organization, because like Ramakrishna Mission, because which Vivekananda started, it's proliferating all over the world. He has started the Vedanta Society, of the US, because wherever he has got it and all. Likewise, everyone has started, and that is their capacity, because it is not within the capacity of any one of us. So whatever, we will be able to do is within our capacity. And then once you do with that, because with whatever skill, we have to continuously improve our skill, we do it, then we do it. Because he knows our capacity. And we don't know our own capacity. Our ambitions, our wishes, and our expectations are based on, sometimes, we may be under capacity also. We wanted to be, take life easy, because, okay, I do not want to get into so much of a trouble, in the sense, even though you are capable, you don't know your own potential, you will be underperforming. But when you are trying to go beyond what you can do, then, because you try to attempt it without equipping yourself with the skill as well as the knowledge as well as the steadfastness with which you have to have that, because indomitable spirit to do that. When you are not able to do that, you will not be able to do that. That is why, you leave it to the, and you continuously equip yourself, the skill, and as well as, because always try to do as best as possible, whatever little you are doing. Don't take too many things, but whatever you are doing, you do it as best as possible. This is what, because the life says, but we are trying to do too many things because demands of the day is that, because for instance, we expect our children to be so good in studies. We want him to be good in sports also. Maybe, he may not be outstanding, but we want him to be someone in the sports. We want to do him, we want to learn him the performing arts, either painting, this and that and all. He also should know the computer, this and that. We are trying to put so many things. But if you really look back, were we able to do all these things? Do we have the capacity to do these things? So when you have the self inquiry, you will be finding it out, because whatever we could do is whatever was available, where we had the capacity, knowledge, and the opportunities available. That's what we did. So the children will also do. They know it better than what it is. That is why it is not, something you should not try to emulate someone else. Perhaps, your capacity may be much more than, what you think, because you are trying to look into that. That is why they are telling, in all these cases, surrender is when you try to get into yourself, when you try to excel yourself in whatever you're doing. Mindfulness, when we are having it, automatically you are surrendering yourself. Because your thoughts are not, because contaminated with your past, whatever has happened. That is a guide. Whatever has happened in the past is a guide. You will be avoiding the pitfalls. You will not be doing the mistakes. But, it will be sort of enabling you to do much better than what to do. And future, if you are trying to sort of predict the future and predicate the future and try to do, this has happened, that has happened, you do not know how the things are going to change. So once you work on the present, and when you are trying to give the best, automatically it will take care of whatever you deserve to get in the future. This is what they say when you mean a surrender and all. It is not, you should not always be agitated by why, it's not happening, why I am getting into the dead end, because this is what, I have planned, I couldn't do it. And then, you should not be getting into the hindsight, because hindsight always will be wiser, because whatever has happened, we have learned from there. Yes, because that wisdom is going to help in whatever we are going to do now. You can't, try to reconstruct the past. You will have to leave it at that. So that surrender is a simple thing, is mindfulness. Try to do as best as possible. Don't bother about, what others are thinking about you. Don't try to see yourself in others' metrics, others' shoes. You go by your own things, because sometimes, you may be odd man out. When the whole world will be doing something, they will think, why are, because someone may nudge you also to get into that. But if you are convinced in your heart of hearts, in your intuition says, because you are on the right path, go about it. That is the surrender. So you will not be able to get anything. And once you have that, confidence, self-confidence in you, and once you do, you are doing everything, because as per that, you are not bothering about anything. You are trying to give your best, and you are trying to live the life as it is, because you make it comfortable as possible, as well as, you try to be, because try to do everything as per your sort of, the mind directs you to do. And because once the mind will direct you, once you are always getting into the bigger internal, once you look into yourself, it will give you the right direction. That is the intuition, what we say. This is exactly the 1.37 mantra what we talked about, because that is what it said. See, just we are going to see 3 months are together, 1.3.7 and 1.3.8 and 1.3.9. It is in your page 71. Yastu avijnanavan bhavati amanaskaha sata asuchi. The one, you are continuously agitated. That means, you are not still, you have not got into the mode of, getting the self-confidence. So avijnanavan, in the sense, avijnanavan, you are not able to bring your horses to the boat. All of them are not in sync. You are still being, regurgitating. You are always, thinking about something or other, and you are finding out, even when something is happening, you are not satisfied. See, you will have to go, because when there are milestones, you will have to achieve in milestone. Anything you are doing it, and there will be milestones. If you get the milestone, then after reaching the milestone, you should think about the next milestone. So that is how, because it will, and then only, you will be able to reach the goal. So this is exactly, the concept, that is being, in computation also, because where all the computing and that is taking place, as well as, of course, the concept has been little changed, with the AI coming into being, and we will talking about, and because the AI is the capacity, you will be able to do so many things, simultaneously. But then you will be able to do everything, with perfection. But whether you have got the capacity, that we will have to see, how best we will do it and all. That is exactly this. Yes, to avijnanavan, within the human capacity, within the human ambit of, the control and the conditionalities of the mind, what you can do. Yes, to avijnanavan bhavati amanaskaha. Amanaskaha, and you are always agitating mind. You are thinking of so many thoughts. Because I will have to see, at least I should make lakh of rupees per month in the stock market. At the same time, I will have to see, meet all my social obligations, as well as, I have to sort of, they have, and once in a while, I will have to go out, to some holidaying also. If you have so many things, you plan it and you give the time for that. When you go for a holiday, only do the holiday. Don't think about it. I have come here in the stock market has gone down. It is the right opportunity. I should, because that should not be there. But when you are working on the stock market, don't think of the holidaying and all. Because likewise, once you are clear about what you are doing, mindful at that point of time, you will not have, that is in fact the surrender. When you will be able to give the best, and you will not be unduly expecting something out of it, because you can't always take get a lottery ticket everywhere and all. It is through the effort. உழைப்புக்கேற்ற ஊதியம். In Tamil there is, the more you put the effort, what you will get. But you may think, I do deserve more. That maybe you are thinking because you have seen someone else. Need not necessarily. समय से पहले भाग्य से ज़्यादा कभी नहीं मिलता है. As it is being written on the all the lorry, all the trucks, in the North India, when they go, they give you a lot of word of wisdom. This is like that. It will come to you, and it is proportionate to your effort as well as mindfulness, as much excellence you are giving into everything. So then it is said, once you are having this, you will not be able to get the goal. Na sat tat padam apnoti, you will not be able to reach the goal. Na sa, the one who is having agitated mind, who is not, because having a control, on his senses, he will not be able to get the goal. So that means, you have to go a long, it's a long way. And how, because surrender, is it by some sort of a fluke, it comes, or by God's grace it comes? God's grace is certainly essential. Ishvara Anugraha is that one everywhere. Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, everywhere, it is. Without that, you will not be able to get. That will come. But once you become, yourself, when God's grace will come, once you come into the grace mark level, when you are having 3 to 4 marks, the grace is required, God will give you the grace mark. If you are having 20 marks to be given to bring you to the grace level, you will not be able to. That is why more you effort, more you try to become, and certainly you will be lifted up, to the point, you are in the zone of grace, you can be given the grace mark. So that is how it will happen, not otherwise. So this is only when it is there, you will not be able to reach the goal. Goal in the sense, goal is, it's always like a horizon, because what you had a goal 10 years before is different. What you are having, going to have a goal, because next month will be different. And another thing, you look back yourself, because what all of us were 5 years before, how our attitude was there, how our thinking was there. If you see 5 years right now, if you realize there is a lot of change, whether you are able to sort of perceive those changes or not, but you have changed and I have changed. All of us have changed for good. That has happened because we are able to try to give some. We were able to give time to ourselves. We were able to think over something. Because certain things we don't unnecessarily worry about. Certain things we don't go get into at all. Because we know it's not our cup of tea. I don't unnecessarily waste my time on that, which is the one which is very essential. And I am able to prioritize. Because priority, I don't have to write it on a paper always. Automatically my mind says. That means I am having a control on my senses and I am having control on my priority. So therefore I am able to do that. That is, you are having the horses on fold. They will take you. They are in sync wherever they are going. The same next mantra says, Yastu Vijnanavan Bhavati. One who is having a full control, who is knowledgeable and who knows discriminating power is there. This is what I have to do and all. Samanaskaha. His mind is fully in control. Samanaskaha in the sense, it is the highest, he is totally steadfast. He is not unnecessarily be wasting his time on this and all. Sata Suchi. Sata Suchi is always pure. The purity will come only when morally you are having a highest elevation. Asuchi we saw in the earlier mantra, Suchi we saw. Suchi is the purity. Purity is when you don't think of anything, because the untoward for other person. And when you don't have even the thoughts, and why a thought like that should come, you are only bothered about it. If at all, you will try to help. If at all, because if you can't do anything at all, you will try to contribute to the organization, or at least you will be in the zone of helping, whoever, is needing some help, maybe in terms of efforts or in terms of finance, in terms of advice, or something like that. Once you had Sata Suchi, because that is what it will happen. So once it have come to that zone, then you don't have any confusion and all, just about that. You will not be unnecessarily putting your leg into so many things and finding it out, and you don't have any worry because you are contented with whatever it is, and you will be contented. Only thing, as we said last week, whatever you are trying to achieve, whatever you are desiring, and whatever you want to get hold on in this world, all of them are combination of the Panchabhutas. Whatever way you call it, because it's all coming out of that. So you may, because the value proposition may be so, because, it is the brand, everyone has got either the brand equity is there, and as well as, it has got a value proposition is there, even because that will go vanish in no time, because how many brands have continued, like this, and it will all vanish in over a period of time. But what is the purpose of it? Is it going to take anything, to a higher level and all? Not at all. Everything has got a utility value. In the utility, what is there? Because if you go by a flight, you will be able to reach in 2 hours. If you are going to take a train, because maybe you will have a comfortable journey, but you will have about 10 hours. And if you are driving down, you may be taking another 5 hours, but then you will be doing at your will and pleasure. If you want to stay, have a break somewhere, welcome break, you will be having it and going. You will be going as per yours. Everything has got depending upon what you want to do. But one is not superior to other. Everything is a means of reaching the other place. That is the goal. But because that is a state in which you are in, then because the time what you have in your hand, then you are able to go there. This is what, therefore, that is nothing great about it. So therefore, whatever is possible, whatever is comfortable for you at that point of time, go by that. Don't have any unnecessary thoughts on this. This is what these two mantras are telling. The last mantra, because 1.3.9 says, Vijnana Sarati Jastu Manaprahavan Naraha. The ones who are having control, he's having the reins of his senses to the utmost. So when once you atman, there's the sense, you are not having any agitation, anything done. So what does it? What is that? Because what is that status? When you don't have any agitation, everything is in the control and the sense. Because you are not going to be, because bothering. Senses are only thing. They are only showing whatever is there. Just because you are seeing always a blue color or a red color, you are not going to be fond of that color. Because you are being shown so many colors at the point of time, because you like that, but you are not going to be sort of holding on to one color only. You will, whatever comes, you are seeing it, and you are selecting at that point of time whatever is most suited to you, and at that point of time what is more likable to you are suiting. That's all. You leave it at that. You are not going to hold on to that. Likewise, if you are going to have a particular sort of liking for something, if you go on folding it, it becomes a habit. So, because what we are seeing is breaking the habit only is adhyatma. Nothing becomes a habit. Nothing, without any of those things, I should be able to live in this world. That is adhyatma. Once I have a liking, once I have a fold on to that, that becomes a habit. Unless you break the habit, you will not be able to get into the internal journey. The breaking the habit, because even people talk about, there is a book and all, they are all talking about, that is given, that is innate part of the adhyatma. Without that, because nothing is in particular, you will be able to live in a desert, because where only few facilities will be available and the food will be available of a different kind. Even in a cold region, if you go to, because then you should be able to live there. And even in your own country, you should be able to, but if you are not, if you are looking for something in your own country, you will be cribbing. This is not available, that is not available. But if you are not able to live with what is available, no one can help it. When so many people are not having access even to those facilities that is available in your place, when it is available to you, you choose not to be satisfied. That option is yours. That means, because you are not, that is what exactly the Vijnanavan Sarathir Rastu, because once you are having Manaha Pragrahavan Naraha, because once you are having a tight control, leash on your senses, control over the senses, you don't have. So Advanaha Paramapnoti Tadvishno Paramam Padam. Once you are that, you will be able to reach that place. And the last quarter of the mantra say Tadvishno Paramam Padam. Tadvishno Paramam Padam is a word from Rigveda. There is a mantra in Rigveda and it has taken part of that Vitna as the last quarter of it. So that Tadvishno Paramam Padam is telling that is the highest abode bliss. In the sense you will not be having any agitation. Because in Rigveda mantra says Tatvishno Paramam Padam Nitya Pashyanti Suraya. In the sense you will be always having a shine. Always your life will be shining. You will always be in the mode of happiness. No one can bring darkness in your mood. No darkness can enter into your mood. You will always be bright and shining, and you will be always happiness personified. You yourself become someone, because everyone will look up to you, because whether they have the occasion to see you, talk to you and all, you become someone like that. Because you don't have any agitation, nothing, everything has gone up. This is what this mantra has said. So when we are coming into this particular mode of things, because there are certain occasions, I will like to quote a few occasions where this type of agitation has taken place, and how because people have unnecessarily taken into the sort of the making their life miserable and all. Because you are listening to not only because your own voice, you should be able to control your own voice. That is adhyatma. You should not have any own chatter. So because you look for that, because we have been you should have got that, this and that. Once you control the chatter, gets into that, chatter comes down, that you are able to silence your mind. Then it's the outside the world. Outside the world, when you are interacting, you should be able to interact without doing without being influenced by that, as well as go by your own experience. Like what the experience what I was telling about Jagat Mehta in the while we are we are closing the last session. Likewise, because it all happens. He didn't answer because he was convinced he doesn't have to answer any of this question and all. He did it that. He always went about that, and he was not bothered about it. Because why he couldn't do well and all. Of course, it is in hindsight when you say it was for someone, it might not have worked. Someone might not have answered some question which he should have answered. Because that is should be his conviction. That will come to you when you are going into the internal journey, when you are having the full conviction of that. So the full conviction, when you will be having it, only when you are able to sort of get into that, and am I doing the right thing? So in this context only, I will try to bring, the very famous movement, that's being talked about, the Oppenheimer's movement. Recently a movie had come, Oppenheimer. It was produced by the famous Christopher Nolan. This movie again. So here he was Oppenheimer, because he was a very, very positive minded person. He doesn't mean anything harm and all. One of the reasons why he agreed to head this entire project, because the famous project they had for making this nuclear bomb. When he had that, because he was convinced if you don't do it, someone else will do. This is the dilemma. Because at that point of time, there was an information, Germans have already, they made a testing and they were almost about to be at it. They would have made it. Heidenberg was there, he was a very famous scientist, and at that time still he was handling in Germany at that point of time. So they were wondering, because if we don't do it, because everyone was at that point of time, had a fear of Germans will do. If they do it first, and they will certainly take over the entire globe, and what will happen, we don't know at all. So that is why he agreed to head the project. Even before that, there was a letter, because even when, because to government to activate, getting into this type of projects is not so easy. So one of the German scientists, who happened to be, in US, who had to come to US, he was having, the inkling as to what is happening and all. He went to Einstein, because Einstein was, of course, he was so well known and so popular. He could talk to anyone, write to anyone and all. He requested Einstein to write a letter to that President Roosevelt. President Roosevelt was at that point of time. He said, because I have got a credible information. The Germans are, because having, all the technology, and in fact, they are also doing the testing and so. It is quite possible, they may be having the final the nuclear bomb, which is possible with the technology. They may be able to produce the first one. So in view of this, we should not be lagging behind, and we should also be taking the countermeasures to that. This is what Einstein had to write the letter after being nudged by some of the scientists who was come from Germany. After having an inkling, they may be doing it, they came into it. So finally, when it was written to, the government was thinking over, is it possible and what to do and all. So normally, as the governments want to do it, because they wanted to give it to the army only. The army was the one, which was handling most of the projects. And army was supposed to be the highly management skilled in those days. The post Second World War and post First World War, all the management books, all the management theories were mostly of a management theory of the army only. How the generals managed, how the generals sort of manage the resources and how they could achieve. Because there are few generals who achieved the great things with the very minimum resources. I don't know, because those who have gone into the military literature, the wonderful literature of the masterpiece of military literature, you will be knowing. There was one general called General Field Marshal Rommel. He was the German general, German Field Marshal. He was, I think, he was sent purposely to Africa, because he has fallen out with these top bosses in Germany. They said, let him try out, let this fellow learn a lesson in Africa, and he was sent like that. And he couldn't get any resources, because all the resources were blockaded by, because all the Allied forces. And the person who was supposed to help Germans, because the Mussolini in Italy, though he was having all the heart to help, he didn't have the resources to help, because already he was in a problem as it is. So Field Marshal Rommel didn't have any resource, and he had to manage the very, very sort of a terrain, inhospitable terrain, because I think it's mountains, rivers, and because even logistics, everything and all, he didn't have the resources and all. Despite that, he adopted a strategy, because even today, if you ask any army man, I think Shankar must be knowing, because he was closely associated with all those things. And for generals, deemed is to be something like a Field Marshal Rommel. He was a general at that time, because with the least resources, he held up the Allied forces for the best part of the time, till such time, the World War was over, the best part of it, he held them up at bay. But he didn't have any help from his own country, because they couldn't send, the logistics was stopped, there was a blockade, and he had only few men left. A lot of, he had a casualty and all. Despite that, Field Marshal Rommel, he did it so effectively, and he is a role model for any general even today, even though he's of the Hitler's army, because any army man, you will say, they will be having a very high regard for him. Of course, the Montgomery and all, they all came, but they came with all the resources available at their beck and command. So likewise, this was the order of the day. So they wanted only an army man to handle this entire project. So therefore, that project, when it was handed over, then, the only army man was asked to assemble all the resources, including the scientific manpower and all. And the army man, when he wanted, he wanted to get someone who has got a credibility. The credibility in those days was to be a Nobel laureate. A Nobel laureate will have a lot of credibility, so that, the people, you will be able to put a lot of people to work under them, and they will be able to achieve it all. But, because none of them were, most of them up to 1938, I don't know, because if you see the record of the Nobel Prizes, almost 45 to 55% of the Nobel Prizes were going to Germany. They had all the scientific manpower at that point of time. Of course, the Einstein has come and some of the Enrico Fermi was working on fusion in Chicago. There were a few of them, have already migrated and they have come out here and all. So most of them are, the Jews, and including Oppenheimer is also Jew. Julius Robert Oppenheimer, he is also a Jew. So, but of course, he has created a lot of talent. He was in the University of Berkeley. If you see the movie, you will understand it because there are a lot of sort of big agitation going on because the scientific community was not getting the required, say in all those things. They were also unionized. Even the scientists and the academic fraternity was unionized, and they were also being looked upon as with suspicion by the government also, because they were supporting a lot of communist governments or communist ideologies elsewhere and all. Despite that, Oppenheimer was a compromise candidate, and finally he was selected and all. But he was known for his assembling the best brains. And then going through the entire project, he got through the project. Of course, it's a very long story. He finally got everything done, and he got the right manpower. He gave them all the freedom, and they were not having the facilitation. He took an extra efforts to get the facilitation, and military always used to look with a suspicion on everyone who is working for the project. In fact, they also deal with in such a way need to know basis, because everyone will not be comprehensively knowing what is happening. That is how the army works, because only what is required to be done at that area, that they will only know that. But Oppenheimer had the great responsibility of assembling everything and seeing it, and he did everything and all. He did marvelously well, and in fact, he was very happy finally when the project succeeded also. And of course, though he was not a Nobel laureate himself, and he was one of the phenomenal students. He had the admission in Harvard when he was too young, and he is also from a very well-to-do family. His father was a contractor. He has already migrated long before to US, and he had a lot of wealth. And he was born with a silver spoon. There was no problem for him and all. And he then went to the other University of Berkeley, and he has worked in other places and all. He had a lot of goodwill, and he has produced a lot of Nobel laureates, though he himself was not a Nobel laureate. He had he had agreed to be involved in the project, because if I don't do the project, someone else will do it. See, in our life also it's happening. If I don't take this opportunity, someone else will take it. As Jack Welch of the famous, the GE, the chairman, celebrated chairman of GE, says, if you don't take care of your own destiny, someone else will. That's how you are always in a desperation to do something, so that you succeed in the metrics of the world and all. At that point of time, sometimes you may do something which is phenomenally stupid also. That will also is possible. So when that happened, finally he got succeeded. But finally the project was done, but they were not knowing when it is going to be used and all. When entire project has succeeded, almost the Second World War has come to an end. In fact, because the Japanese were at the receiving end, because only stupid thing they did was, they went to Pearl Harbor, and the Pearl Harbor created, some sort of an immediate retaliation. They planned for a long-term, very, very sort of a highly, because powerful retaliation to Germany. That's what they have planned. Otherwise, even the Germans have almost surrendered, by the time, this testing was done and all. And it was not all that necessary to sort of drop the bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in the sense, because there was no immediate necessity, and there is no emergency to do it at all. But then, when in the flux, when they have surrendered to Russians and because Russians were not giving full information, the Americans were still suspicious of Russians, whether they have surrendered or they have joined hands with Germany, so many things, because in a flux, that happening, they wanted to see somehow we have got something tested positive, let it be tested. The first man, comes, who makes the first explosion, he becomes the world's superpower. Let it be that. That's how the Americans did it. Because though it was developed under Roosevelt, finally it was Harry Truman, when he was the president. The entire bomb got dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Likewise, everything happens. It is like Oppenheimer's movement in our case, because we do want something. Because if I don't do it, if I don't take this opportunity, if I don't buy the share, someone will buy. If I don't buy the house, because that house is available, everything is good. Someone else will. If it has to come to you, it will come to you. You do, or do you need it? Is it required? And if it, then you plan it, and you plan it, and you go in your own way, because then you don't have to unnecessarily shell it. So if it has to come to you anyway, you will get it. Work on that properly, so that because all the glitches are removed, you can do that. So in fact, in the Oppenheimer's movement is the one everyone is having. Even today, AI, because I will talk about it next week. The artificial intelligence which is being talked about, I think so much of a complex scenario now, and the people who were involved in the development of the artificial intelligence, in fact, who is considered to be the father of the artificial intelligence, Jeffrey Hinton, because who was with Google, he himself has left Google and he has come out and said, because artificial intelligence finally may be disaster for the entire humanity. Though it has got a lot of positives, it will help you a lot of things, because if your DNA sequencing, earlier it used to take so much of a time and resources. Now in a jiffy you can do it, almost thousands of times faster you can do it. And you can also, because study the climate change also, you can predict, because the even the tsunamis and the earthquake, though you cannot predict to the precise point, at least it has improved several times over, and at least this is likely to happen. All those things have come, and the where the temperatures are rising, where the sea levels are rising, everything they are able to do it faster, but at the same time it has also got a lot of other negative effects. Even the company which was involved in development of the Chat GPT, OpenAI, because the Sam Altman, who is the one founder of that, he himself has expressed, I think it may become a Frankenstein, because it is like an Oppenheimer moment only, and at the same time they can't stop it. If Google stops, the others will do it, and if Microsoft stops, also someone else will do it, because there is a lot of positives are there. Taking the positive, everyone will try to capture it, but it has got also the potential of doing it, creating a great harm. Even there was a company called DeepMind, with which the Google was associated. The founder of this, joint founder of that company, I saw his interview yesterday and all. He himself is telling us, because they have put in billions of dollars, but they are also worried, because how it will happen, because it may even the people who are not very familiar with the usage, it could be a usage, it can fall into the rogue's hands. It will be disaster. Another pandemic may come any point of time. This is what they are telling. So taking that into account, that means the controlling the mind, because if there are cosmic, the energy or the cosmic intelligence or the individual intelligence, whatever you call. Finally, when you control it, there will not be any sort of a continuous agitation in your mind, because you will be clearly focusing on what is to be done and done. So why, because even the artificial intelligence can also be guided if it is only there is a code of conduct among the nation states, and because the powers that be, it will have to be used only for specific purposes. Because already we have achieved so many things. If you remember, there was something called CFC. It used to be used in the refrigeration and all. Now none of the refrigerator comes with the CFC, because finally they found out, because of it, the ozone layer is getting depleted. Nothing should be used. There are alternative furans and other things have been found out. They are being used. Likewise, this is what it's an individual level to the cosmic level. The control talks about everything, entire gamut of it. It is only not the individual level. Why we have to have all the conduct at the individual level is collectively this is going to influence the society and influence the entire cosmic knowledge also. What you are going to get, it is always a give and take. When you are getting the best out of the cosmic knowledge, and you will also be giving the best to them, because it's not the one-way traffic. Unless human beings are good, we will be able to we will not be able to give the best, to others, and the world will not be a better place. In fact, the climate change, what we are talking about, there is one research study I saw. I was appalled to see what type of outcome that has come about it. About 9,30,000 years before, there was some climate change. It was so some part of the world was so cool, The study says it is yet to be, because validated and accepted. Most of them apparently they see, the factually it may be correct. That's what it is still to be validated. They say the total human reproductive population was only 1,300, 9,30,000 years before. Because so much of a cold regions were there. The Africa was also unbearably cold and the humans couldn't survive. In those days, because now we are Homo sapiens, and in those days it was a Homo erectus. And this year Nobel Prize has been received by the Stratton Babu, because he has said Neanderthal, the DNA is also there. That's how, for that only he has got the human beings. Still, all of us carry a portion of Neanderthal sort of, the DNA is also there. That's what he has said. So they say 9,30,000 years before, the world population, reproductive population, only for 1,300, because it is to be validated. Let us take, with a pinch of salt, because let's hope it's not so. But today, because after 9,30,000 years, we are 7.5 billion. And for 1,20,000 years, they say the same 1,300 and odd population only had continued. 9,30,000 years before to 8,10,000 years before, the reproductive population available in the world was only 1,300. It's mind-boggling. It's also, of course, they have used, there is one AI technology called fair coal, because they pit coal, they have used it. And they have sort of brought these things. Let's hope, because these are all maybe, not as validated and true as maybe, but the indications are there. So that we can't take everything for granted. We can't say, it is always like that and all. So it can happen anytime and all. It all happens, because climate change, how come? It's a human intervention only. Because now whatever is going to happen is only human intervention. In those days, because the natural calamity, they were not having any power over the nature. It was happening. Now we have got the power over the nature. All the emissions are in our control. All the climatic changes and all the sort of actions are in our control. If the planet has to be available to us, and if the human beings are not to be extinct, it's all our own responsibility. If you see the study, it is really says maybe another 100,000 years from hence, whether the question mark of human, the Homo sapiens to be available in this world, still to be explored. That's what they are telling. These are all some things which I thought I will share it with you, and I will also talk about it a little more. Basically, it comes at the individual level when we have everything and all. Finally, it becomes the collective consciousness of the entire universe. Whatever, irrespective of the philosophy what you follow and all. And then, because that is why, we have to be, because more people are agitated, more of them are depressed, because neuroscientists, because psychologists and psychoanalysts were not there earlier and all. The psychiatry was not a big known subject, because about 50 years before. The psychiatry has become almost popular in India, also in some other cities. That shows, more you are, finally you are contributing to not only your unwellness, it's also for the detriment of the world. So it has to be available to all of us. That is what the Upanishad says. From here, the next 3-4 mantras, which is going to be there, in fact, they are going to be the mantras perhaps we will find rare to see any of the Upanishads or any of the documents, which will be in our command to see. That is to be, from mantra number 10 to 17, they are going to be the bulwark of entire wisdom. What we can get, from the Upanishads and Vedas, we will concentrate on that. With this, I will try to conclude today's session, and we will have a small meditation. With that, we will come to an end. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvina vadidamastu ma vishvidavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And just put the